The Bible is really offensive. And to be honest with you, if you open the Bible and you only need to get to chapter 2 to be offended in one way or another. As I was preparing this week, I realized how few sermons are in the last part of chapter 2. The last couple of commentaries that you get on this chapter date from 1970 or 1980. As in the 90s and 2000, people try to move away from this because they don't want to be canceled. But before we get to the part of the cancellation, let's think and reflect in a slow way in what God has created. If you think about the creation and when you read about this passage, you figure it out that what we call the Garden of Eden is just a small portion of the whole world Eden that God has created. God created the whole world, and from the dust He created man. And He created man, and for the pleasure, the sustainability, and the love that God had for man, He created a special garden. And He created a job for the man to do. And the job for the man in that garden was to take care, was to love, and was to be the steward of creation and be the representation of God in the earth. And as we read the passage, and we are not going to go into the details on how the rain came and how the things, we have these 2 trees in this beautiful garden. And always with the 2 trees, we have what is called free will. It is the opportunity that God Almighty gives us to choose Him and to choose right. And that's something that sometimes when I get in arguments with some Christian and some colleagues, I always try to get to the point that is this. God didn't grab me by the neck. God didn't grab you by the neck and make you believe in Him. He can do that. He can reprogram your brain in a way that you recognize that He is God, and He can, in a way, force you to do whatever He wants you to do. But He doesn't do it. Because He has given me the freedom to choose Him by love. So you have in this garden, you have this beautiful tree, the tree of life. And if you read John Milton Paradise Lost, and if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, that is the first account of creation outside the biblical narrative, you read that the whole search of humanity was to get this tree of life that was lost. And you have another tree. You have another thing in the background. You have sin looming around. You have the choice of not selecting Christ looming around. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you have bypassed chapter 2, you basically know what happened in the story. I am not giving you any spoilers. But we need to base our principles as a Christian and the foundations of our church and our Christian life in that principle. The principle of free will and the principle of human consequences and human's desire. Without one, you don't get the other. So God created this wonderful tree, and He gave a job. And the beautiful thing, and when you think about this, and people say the Bible is false, the Bible is not real, or God made mistakes, or this, or another, you think in the history and the narrative of the creation of woman, and you think, well, like God can and should have and could possibly have done male and female, the woman and men, and that started in all the other animals. He did it that way. But as God gave a job to Adam, and Adam is looking at all the animals and all the creations, God have prepared and predetermined that the lad will realize that being alone is not the best thing. I'm right, Kevin? It's not the best thing. You're beside your wife, you need to smile and not fuss without any doubts. So as God is creating and He is nurturing and He is caring for us, He made Adam discover that it is not good to be alone. If you are a lad like me, you know how stubborn we are. You know how we like to think that everything is our idea. And in the way that God created us, He made things and creating woman was our idea because we needed them. This is one of the Bible verses that I really like, and I try to, my naughty mind try to imagine sometimes that it's not too Christian, but look at, have you read the picture of excitement in a book? The best Christmas present ever for this fellow. He realized that he is alone, and God created this beautiful chick for him. And look what he said. This, alas, is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She had called woman because she was taken out of man. If you read that fellow is happy. Adam is happy. Ben, are you happy? Look at that beautiful lady beside you. It is the picture of the father down the aisle. When you ask, if you have the opportunity of marrying somebody, there is not a best moment in the wedding for me as a bloke than when the fellow see the bride for the first time. What was the face of that guy? He saw the bride. You can't remember. You should remember. There is a moment that you have the guy turning, sweating, nervous, and then you ladies are nasty sometimes and arrive late, and then make doubts in your mind. What is happening? Did she have cold feet? Did she realize that I am not good at cooking or stuff like that? And then there is a moment when the guy turns and see the bride coming, and the face lift up. And I always say, next time that you are fighting, next time that the microwave meal is born, think about that moment, bro. Think about that moment 25 times a day. God is the Father bringing the bride to the man. And this is where things get complicated. This is when things get annoying. This is where things get different to what the word is saying. Because God then wanted to create a perfect world. God then wanted to have the perfect companionship. God then is the Father bringing out the bride. didn't create another bloke, didn't create two women, didn't create a triplet. God created a man and a woman to be together. God created a representation of the church and Jesus Christ coming together. And this is what the Christian faith annoys and offends. Because if you think about the word, and if you think what the word is presenting and is saying, this is not the picture that we get. So the question that we ask, and I am trying to be nice, and I am not even trying to be nice, because in the world that we live, these type of things hit really closely at home. My case is an uncle. In somebody else is a sister, a brother, a son, a daughter, a father, grandmother. Sin has corrupted us from this beautiful picture. And many do not find marriage in the way that God has created. Many do not find this male and female as something that is the only option. Remember, when God created the garden, He has always given us the free will to select. But in His heart and in His grace and in His hope, He wants us to select Him and to select right. And the problem that we have in the church today, and the problem that we have from the pulpit, is that many people and many ministers want to have a love that is greater than God. So you try to have a love that is greater than God, and you try to justify and to pretend that God is not good enough and God is not loving enough, and then maybe God did make a mistake with you. And God put you in a man's body when you are a woman, or God's put you in a woman's body when you are a man. And I am really sad and sorry, and it pains in my heart to say that God doesn't make mistakes. God wanted you to be a male. God wanted you to be a female. And God wanted you to have the perfect companionship that is found in the other gender. Sometimes as a Christian, we can be nasty. We can be cruel. And we can be pushing back because we treat people with a different belief and with a different inclination like somebody different than us, and somebody that is imperfect, and somebody that have something wrong, that there is something missing, that there is a defect in them. There is not a defect in them. It's sin destroying the image of God in them. In the same way that sin destroys the image of God in me. Sometimes we do a hierarchy of sin, a hierarchy of problems, and we say, if you are this, and let's say it like it is. If you are an homosexual, if you are a bisexual, and if you have a gender dysphoria, you are worse than everybody else because your sin is here. I just like to gossip. I just like to gossip. It's in here, and the other things are in there too. And what we are trying to do is recognize that we are created for the glory of God, to give glory to God. And so as a Christian, as a believer, you can be truthful, you can be firm, but you can be loving in the same way. Sometimes we try to attack people, and we have people that have to hide stuff. Why do they have to hide stuff? Because the Christian, if they know what they should not know, they will not love me. They will attack me. They will push me aside. And we are sinning in that way too, because God has called us to take care of creation. God has called us to love the sinners. God hasn't called us to accept the sin, but God has called us to love the sinner, to show grace, to show love. That person in that sin, Jesus Christ died from them. In the same way that Jesus Christ died for me. Do I am inspired to a perfect word? Yes, I am. Do I am called to love them? Yes, I am. That doesn't mean that I have to avoid this page of the Bible. That doesn't mean that I have to bend it down and do theological things in order to justify or pretend or create a cultural background in what that is okay. I can say from the bottom of my heart, it is not okay. This is what God has intended. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. My prayer, my desire is that we are not going to be ashamed in front of the eyes of my Creator. My desire is that every man will find the perfect woman to be the companionship. No a servant, because that's another problem. The word in here as a helper. If you check Psalm 33, the same word is used for God as my helper. We are talking about a perfect partnership between a man and a woman. And I can say anything outside that perfect creation of God and anything outside that marriage that God have designed is not right. And I will say it's not right. But I am not saying it with proud. I am not saying it with boast. I say it with pain in my heart. Because that pain hit quite close home for many of us. God gave us a free will. God gave us the tree of life. God gave us His Son. And He literally died so we will select Him. Our job is to share the truth. Our job is to share the gospel. But our job is also to love the sinners. And for the one that is sinning, for the one that is struggling, to see the love, the grace, and the power of Christ in us, so they will select Jesus too. Have nothing else to say. May God bless you all.